Welcome back. I'm N.S. Lavanya, Assistant Professor, Department of English, KCS Kasinadar College of Arts and Science. Let's look at the summary of Saint John written by George Bernard Shaw. In this video, Saint John is a play by George Bernard Shaw about 15th century French military figure Joan of Arc, premiering in 1923. 3 years after her canonization by the Roman Catholic Church. The play reflects Shaw's belief that the people involved in Joan's trial acted according to what they thought was right. He wrote in his preface to the play. Shaw characterized Saint John as a chronicle play in 6 scenes and an epilogue. Joan, a simple peasant girl, claims to experience visions of Saint Margaret, Saint Catherine, and the Archangel Michael, which she says were sent by God to guide her conduct. Scene 1. Robert D. Batricote complains about the inability of the hens on his farm to produce eggs. Joan claims that her voices are telling her to lift the siege of Orleans and to allow her several of his men for this purpose. Joan also says that she will crown the Dauphin in Reims Cathedral. Batricote ridicules Joan, but his steward feels inspired by her words. Batricote eventually begins to feel the same sense of inspiration and gives his consent to Joan. Stewart enters at the end of the scene to exclaim that the hens have begun to lay eggs again. Batricote interprets this as a sign from God of Joan's divine inspiration. Scene 2. Joan talks her way into being received at the court of the weak and vain Dauphin. There, she tells him that her voices have commanded her to help him become a true king by rallying his troops to drive out the English occupiers and restore France to greatness. Joan succeeds in doing this through her excellent powers of flattery, negotiation, leadership, and skill on the battlefield. Next is Scene 3. Junais and his page are waiting for the wind to turn so that he and his forces can lay siege to Orleans. Joan and Junais commiserate, and Junais attempts to explain to her more pragmatic realities of an attack without the wind at their back. Her replies eventually inspire Junais to rally the forces, and at the scene's end, the wind turns in their favor. Scene 4. Warwick and Stockumber discuss Joan's stunning series of victories. Joined by the Bishop of Beauvais, they are at a loss to explain her success. Stockumber decides Joan is a witch. Beauvais sees Joan as a threat to the church, as she claims to receive instructions from God directly. He fears she wants to instill national pride in the people, which would undermine the church's universal rule. Warwick thinks she wants to create a system in which the king is responsible to God only, ultimately stripping him and other feudal lords of their power. All agree that she must die. Scene 5. The Dauphin is crowned Charles VII at Reims Cathedral. A perplexed Joan asks Junais why she is so unpopular at court. He explains that she has exposed very important people as incompetent and irrelevant. She talks to Junais, Bluebeard, and La Hire about returning home. Charles, who complains about the weight of his coronation robes and smell of the holy oil, is pleased to hear this. She then says to Junais, "Before I go home, let's take Paris," an idea which horrifies Charles, who wants to negotiate a peace immediately. The Archbishop berates her for her sin of pride. Junais warns her that if she is captured on a campaign he deems foolhardy, no one will ransom or rescue her. Now realizing that she is alone on earth, Joan declares that she will gain the strength to do what she must from the people and from God. She leaves, leaving the men dumbfounded. Scene 6 deals with her trial. Stokumber is adamant that she be executed at once. The inquisitor, the Bishop of Beauvais, and the church officials on both sides of the trial have a long discussion on the nature of her heresy. Joan is brought to the court and continues to assert that her voices speak to her directly from God and that she has no need of the church's officials. This outrages Stokumber. She acquiesces to the pressure of torture at the hands of her oppressors and agrees to sign a confession relinquishing the truth behind her voices. When she learns she will be imprisoned for life without hope or parole, she renounces her confession. Joan says, "You think that life is nothing but not being dead? It is not the bread and water I fear. I can live on bread. It is no hardship to drink water if the water be clean, but to shut me from the light of the sky and the sight of the fields and flowers, to chain my feet so that I can never again climb the hills, to make me breathe foul damp darkness. Without these things I cannot live. And by your wanting to take them away from me or from any human creature, I know that your counsel is of the devil." Joan accepts death at the stake as preferable to such an imprisoned existence. Stokumber vehemently demands that Joan then be taken to the stake for immediate execution. The inquisitor and the Bishop of Beauvais excommunicate her and deliver her into the hands of the English. The inquisitor asserts that Joan was fundamentally innocent in the sense that she was sincere and had no understanding of the church and the law. Stokumber re-enters, screaming and severely shaken emotionally after seeing Joan die in the flames, the first time that he has witnessed such a death, and realizing that he has not understood what it means to burn a person until he has actually seen it happen. A soldier had given Joan 2 sticks tied together in a cross before the moment of her death. Bishop Martin Ladvenu also reports that when he approached with a crucifix to let her see it before she died, and he approached too close to the flames, she warned him of the danger from the stake, which convinced him that she could not have been under the inspiration of the devil. Epilogue. 25 years after Joan's execution, a retrial has cleared her of heresy. Brother Martin brings the news to Charles VII. Charles then has a dream in which Joan appears to him. She begins conversing cheerfully not only with Charles but with the old enemies, which also materialize in the king's bedroom. The visitors include the English soldier who gave her a cross. Because of this act, he receives a day off from hell on the anniversary of Joan's death. An emissary from the present day brings news that the Catholic Church is to canonize her. John says that saints can work miracles and asks if she can be resurrected. At this, all the characters desert her one by one, asserting that the world is not prepared to receive a saint such as her. Lost to live is the English soldier, who is about to engage in a conversation with Joan before he is summoned back to hell at the end of his 24-hour respite. The play ends with Joan ultimately despairing that mankind will never accept its saints. O God, that madest this beautiful earth, when will it be ready to accept thy signs? How long, O Lord, how long? That's the end of the summary. Thanks for watching this video. We meet again next time.